Hi there. Today I wanted to show you my process video for making a card with the new Floral Details and Background stamp set. So I'm stamping this on my White Daisy cardstock with black archival ink because I want to color in some of the flowers. So in order to do that, the black archival will allow me to not have any issues with smudging or smearing of my ink. So it gives me a nice crisp image and it stays where it's supposed to. So I'm just trimming that image up. It's almost the size of a card, but just slightly smaller so that I can mat it if I want to. So I'm cutting it tight to the image because I don't want any extra white showing around it. And now I'm taking out my watercolor pencils. And I wasn't quite sure what color I really wanted to use here, but I ended up settling on a nice little pink. So what I'm doing is I'm just shading it in. I'm not being particularly neat or tidy with this. I'm trying to make sure that I don't go out of the lines really too much. But again, I'm not worried too much about what the coloring is going to look like, because once I get it wet, all of those little marks and lines will disappear. So now that I've done some of my coloring in, I've pulled out my little water brush and I'm using the smaller brush one, and I'm just blending in my pencil. So it's pretty simple. You just have to practice a little bit and play with it. But what I did was I put some darker colors towards the outside of my leaves and a lot less color on the insides, and then I'm just pulling it towards the center so that I get a little bit of a different shading. So unfortunately I didn't think to zoom in while I was doing this part of it, but you will be able to see a close-up at the end of the video. So I'm just going to jump ahead here in a second. I did the rest of the coloring off screen, and I'm just playing around with my circle dies here because I decided I wanted to make this into a shaker card. So I went and prepared my pieces. I have some sapphire cardstock. I'm going to use that for my background to frame up my stamped image. And then I have the circle that I cut out of that stamped image, and I'm going to use it to stamp my sentiment and be the backer for my shaker. So I've just put some temporary tape down onto the background. I'm lining everything up so that it's gonna sit nicely. So that's what I'm doing there. I get it all lined up, and then I'm going to be able to stamp my sentiment. So this stamp actually has coordinating sentiment stamp sets, and you would have seen that sitting on my desk there earlier. But because I put this little frame around it, it's a little bit too big to fit inside of that little frame. So I found this other one in my stash, an M-size stamp set, and it's going to fit perfectly because it allows me a little bit of space for my shaker contents anyway without covering up the sentiment as much. So I'm gluing all the pieces together here. I'm going to use some foam tape on the back to create my shaker. I had just a scrap of acetate laying around. I don't even know what it came from. Maybe packaging or something. So that's what I'm using for my cover of my shaker. So I'm just sticking that down with some liquid adhesive. And then I'm going to put foam squares all the way around my circle to create my own shaker die, because this circle is smaller than our standard circle shakers. So I just need to create my own, which isn't that difficult. So now that I'm ready to put my fill into my shaker window, I'm just pulling out the bitty beads. So these are brand new. They're the bold color bitty beads, and I'm going to use the blue ones that coordinate so nicely with my sapphire cardstock. So I'm getting those in place. I've put a little bit of anti-static onto my acetate, and I'm going to attach it all together. So it's a little bit different doing it this way. Normally you would do it the opposite way, but just the way this card was coming together, that was the way it was going to work for me. And it worked out pretty good. I managed to line it up nicely, and there it is, all completed.